Welcome to a new episode of Pablo Held Investigates, my podcast where I talk to my musical heroes and peers about their creative process. In today's episode, I get to talk to Ben Solomon. Ben is an incredible saxophonist, and I first heard about him when I was checking out the albums by Wallace Roney, mainly Understanding and A Place in Time, I think. And I was immediately struck by his musicality, his sound, his energy, and his ideas, and mainly his love for the music. That was in fact my only note that I needed for this conversation. I wrote down Ben Solomon, love. Sometimes you can see when somebody's in love. Just people walking down the street, you can see when somebody's in love. And with Ben, I can hear it, that he's in love with his music. So that was something I needed to talk to him about, his view on the music of John Coltrane and what he could learn from it and what his process was of going so deep, I think this was a great conversation, and I'm really happy that I can share this now with you. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment or tell your friends to check it out. It really helps me. If you would like to support the podcast even more, you can become a patron at patreon.com/PabloHeld. I'm sharing exclusive content with my patrons, behind the scenes stuff, online hangouts, listening sessions. Also, all my patrons get a discount on the Investigation Notes notebook. You can get it on my Bandcamp page. It has staff paper, and you can write down all the things you don't want to forget and that you find inspiring. All right, I hope you enjoy this episode. I'm glad that we can all learn together from Ben Solomon. John Coltrane will be a topic that will come up very often in our conversation. Yeah. And it's basically, the first thing that comes to mind when I hear you is love. Somebody who is in love with somebody. Yeah. And I hear the same thing when I hear Wallace Roney or, I hear the same thing when I'm hearing Tony Williams or, I'm hearing somebody who is so curious about somebody else because that's what's happening. That's what's happening when we fall in love. We want to know everything about a person, Wow. And that's what I hear when I listen to you, because, and I think the topic is obvious, for some people, going deep on a subject, on an artist, can sometimes have the difficulty or the trap of becoming a clone, or there's the whole cliche of becoming a clone or whatever. Yeah. But I think people are very, very quick to judge somebody and to put them in a box, because everybody, the majority of the people listen only on the surface, right? And they listen also to other people on the surface, like, okay, that's my idea of that guy. That's my idea of that. This is how that guy sounds. But, just listening to somebody once doesn't really give you an idea usually, At least that's how I feel, you really have to invest in somebody and to go deep with everything you have to, start getting some sort of idea. And I really appreciate it when somebody goes deep on a subject, and when I'm hearing what somebody's working on, when I'm hearing that somebody is really investing. When I talked to Wallace, he talked also about Emilio, and I think you saw the conversation. I think what he said, his words were, "You sure you want to go all the way?" You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And usually nobody goes all the way, It's only a few.
Well, that's what Wallace was all about, Or that's one of the things he talked a lot about to people in his band, like why hold back? You know, why just kind of do what you want? Like, just don't give up and just, you know, pursue that to its total end, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like that explains a lot about him and his music, I think, is his determination and a lot of focus. And from seeing Wallace play countless times on gigs and like being next to him as he's playing, that's one of the things I remember really clearly, is like how focused he is when he plays, in a way that I think most people just can't focus that hard, or they don't want to, or, you know, I don't know what the reason is, but Wallace is so focused, and I think Coltrane is like that, like utterly focused, like there's nothing else.
Yeah.
That's just total commitment to that one idea or those ideas, you know. So that's something really inspiring.
Yeah.
That I get from when I think about Wallace, and it's a very intangible thing. It's hard to just do that, I think. Like,
did you talk to him about it?
About that specifically?
Yeah, being focused.
No, I'm not sure we did, actually. We talked about a lot of things. Sometimes, I don't know. What I remember talking to Wallace a lot about was like different albums and different like recordings, and him. He had great stories, like great recollections of all the people he played with. And that was really, really cool to hear. And he had a great sense of humor too. Like a lot of funny stories or, you know, kind of jokes.
Anything that comes to mind?
Oh God, well, there was kind of this running joke about me stealing other people's food or eating, which had happened on the process of traveling. You know, we're like eating somewhere, and I would want to try his food, or maybe we were in a hotel room and he ordered food, and I ended up in his hotel room, and then I was there and I was, hey, can I have some food? You know. But then I ended up eating like all of it, or I ended up a lot of it. So it was just a funny like joke, you know, that, you know, be careful about Ben. You know, he might eat your chicken or whatever you ordered. But that's just one funny thing. A lot of little things like that. Yeah, good memories.
What was your first memory of playing in that band with Wallace?
Playing with Wallace. I guess the first time I played with Wallace, I sat in with his band. That was really cool. That might have been the first time I met him. Oh no, I met him at a rehearsal before that. This is like, let me see. This is like in 2011 when I met Wallace. So, wow. And I met Antoine too around that time. I think I met Antoine first, and I went over to Antoine's house and talked to him, and he played me some recordings, and we played a little bit together. And then the first gig I did with Wallace, I'm trying to remember what, might have been in New Haven in May of 2011, May or June. Anyway, I was really, really young and really like green, inexperienced. So that gig, I remember feeling like totally wrapped up in the energy of that band. And when he would play, always the first tune was this Metropolis. It's one of Wallace Roney original song. He would always open up with that tune. It's really fast, and the energy is just crazy. And I remember kind of being like taken off my feet, or like kind of like just blasted with the whole energy of the band and Wallace. It was like overwhelming. It was, oh my God, and then I had to play, And
did you know this song before, or did you show you
I think I
had
learned it. I think I had to learn it by ear.
Yeah.
Or maybe there was a chart with like chords on it, but a lot of this stuff, I would like learn it in a rehearsal. But I remember, I didn't know the song that well on the first gig, and the energy was just crazy, and I felt like, how can I keep up with this, So it was a long learning curve. Like, I think it took a while for me to feel comfortable because the band, that band was so high level,
right?
Such a high level playing.
What kind of things helped you to become more adjusted, or was it just the process of playing it again and again?
Yeah, I think that playing again and again, and Wallace would give me like pointers, like he would tell me, you got to work on your eighth note time, just get it more solid. Or he'd say, stop. Like, I remember one of the first things he said, don't play too many short little phrases. Like, cause at that time I was playing, and he was like, no, like play a longer idea and then break it up with shorter things. Don't just play short things because it doesn't make sense, So, there's just like little pointers like that, but that were really important, useful, good things to know and work on. And he would also, I remember one of the first things he would do, like we would talk, even before I was in his band, he would call me and say, hey, check out this solo. Check out Wayne Shorter's solo on Phelan Brune.
Oh yeah.
He'd like, listen to that solo, and he'd say, check out what he's doing, and think about how you can incorporate that into your playing. And I was 18. I was like on the phone with Wallace Roney, like, okay, like, yes, sir.
Sure.
Like, and like, I hadn't heard that, I hadn't heard Phelan. I didn't know all these like Miles records and stuff. So it was like so eye-opening for me. And that was great. Like, that's the best, great learning experience that I could have at that time.
Yeah. Can you maybe go into your process of taking apart that solo? Because that's such an amazing solo. But it's hard to transcribe, it's a hard solo also.
Yeah. I don't think I ever did transcribe it, really. I would listen to it. The biggest thing I wanted was to have that sound, that kind of sound quality, and the just like really, it's hard to explain, but like a really bright sound, but it's not thin bright, but like strength, and brightness, which you also hear. It also, like, Coltrane has that kind of strong, bright sound that like is really, really cool, really special. But yeah, Wayne has his own different version of that. But to me, they're kind of related.
Yeah.
But I think for that solo, I don't know. I couldn't break it down for you, like, piece by piece. But I think the way the phrases work, the way he breaks up the phrases with gestures, and then there's time, there's like kind of like what I was saying, like eighth note time, like place some time, and then gestures like that are not as things that aren't quantized.
They're more loose.
They can't. Yeah, you can't really. And they just and it's just so expressive,
Can you turn it on in your head right now?
That solo?
Yeah, because since you mentioned it, it's running in my head.
Yeah, I mean a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean now I want to listen to it. Now I just want to listen to it. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can do that on this.
I'm not at home right now because if I would be at home, I could put it on because I have the record. I don't have the means to do it now on the computer. It would be nice. But he starts with a spur of notes. It's very loose in the beginning, and then he kind of locks in with Tony, and the rest of the guys in a more eighth note kind of fashion. But then also, as you said, the way he's ending and starting the phrases is very unusual, and really, I imagine the other guys, everybody is so on their toes, and so listening so hard, and. I mean, that's also what Tony is doing, ending the phrases and starting the phrases on different places, not always the same, he's breaking up the rhythm the whole time,
Yeah.
But you have that as well, that you can turn on certain recordings that are special to you, it's not the whole music that I've listened to, but I have it with the pieces that are very, very special and very dear to me. I've listened to them so many times that, if I want to, if I'm lying in bed, I can tap into them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, most of those are different, like recordings of John Coltrane are the ones that I really, really tried to learn and like play them. Those ones really are like ingrained in my memory.
Yeah.
And certain. I think the things that I know how to play stick a lot better.
Mm.
And, I probably should have listened to Wallace more than I probably should have transcribed Phelan Brun if I was really going to do a great job of what he wanted me to do. But at that time when he was, I was so into Coltrane's music that Phelan Brun was like a sidetrack for me.
Yeah.
And I loved it, but my mind wasn't ready for that. Cause I was still no, I need to listen to Interstellar Space every day for 3 years. That was my mindset. And then later I'll deal with that, which is wrong, but that's what I thought when I was, I mean, I don't know, but that's what I thought when I was 18 years old. I was I cannot, I think I even said that while I was oh man, I love what Wayne Shorter's doing, but what about this? What about, all this, what about what, and he always said cause he always said well, definitely Wayne Shorter's following in Coltrane's, logic or footsteps in some way, inspired by John Coltrane. But he was saying how Wayne could be such an individual and so innovative and creative. He was basically saying, that you could borrow that sound, or borrow aspects of that and just totally become your own individual. But yeah, I should have listened to Wallace more on all this stuff. I should have taken him more. I mean, yeah, I've always been very intuitive person, and I just go with my instinct. And sometimes it's a little bit it's hard for me to it's hard for me to commit to things that I don't really, really already want to do badly.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, like
I
it's
know what you
hard.
mean.
Like, even when you
Because
know
with the
that.
things that you really want to do, it's not hard to do them. It's very easy to become obsessed with them and stay with them.
Yeah,
And the other part is a little bit more work, or it starts to feel like work sometimes.
yeah,
Although there can be great stuff, waiting for you around the corner.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, now I'm thinking, I should go back and check out Feeling. Now I need to listen to it again. Like I haven't listened to it in a while. Like I should try to play it, or try to learn some of it.
Mm.
I remember him talking about Stuff
Oh yeah.
from Miles in the Sky, and like the way that one starts is burned in my brain because
Da-da-da.
we listened to it. The way Wayne Shorter solo starts.
Oh, you mean the yeah. Yeah.
It's like the way it begins is so, it's so cool. It's so cool. But yeah, the melody, I remember Wallace talking a lot about what an unusual structure for a composition that was, because
It's very unusual, yeah.
have you, so you know what I'm talking about, where what Wallace told me was that they wrote out each phrase, and then the rest in between the phrases like compress. So like every time they play the form, it gets shorter. Like the phrase is the same. It's the same phrase, but just closer together. And again, then it gets closer again. And and like I don't know any other composition that does that. Or I don't know. That's a really cool idea. I never would have thought of that. So yeah, just being around Wallace, he would just like cue you into things, or like he had a lot of insights into this.
Yeah.
And he would just share that knowledge with you. Really.
What are some other pieces of advice of his that you can remember, or that you sometimes go to for inspiration or guidance?
Oh, some advice. You mean musical advice or
Whatever.
Well, I remember one thing he talked about a lot was like for the whole band sound, he would say like, Love Supreme, Nefertiti, M1 Dishi. These were kind of three ultimate, sounds or ideals, like, and just like, he was kind of thinking like, don't just think of one, like do them all, like do everything. He's like, we think they're separate, but they're all exist. They've all existed for what, 50 years, not 50, or all of this like unbelievable creations. So take them all of these, and just like combine them, and don't lessen any of them in the process. Don't dilute it. Just bring it all into your playing. And I think he said that, I mean, several times to us, the whole band. And that really sticks with me, because I think he was thinking like in a really broad way, an inclusive way, to like take your inspirations and musical idols and just like totally integrate them in a way that I think it's a really big vision, you know? So I think that's a great piece of advice, like a goal. And it wouldn't have to be those three things for you, you know, or anyone. Like, just like what I imagine is what it means is like, take it all. Don't take some of it. Take it all with you. It's all part of you. And you know, so yeah, there's something about that I find really encouraging and interesting to think about.
I mean, when I saw you guys play, something you said before, like a lot of the stuff you've learned in rehearsal, but then without sheet music.
Yeah.
Would he teach you songs without sheet music, or give you the sheet music and then you had to throw it away? Or what was the process like with him, you know, teaching the songs to you? And also, also you've brought in some songs, you know, and I'm interested in that process as well, what he would do with your songs, you know. But take it where you want, you know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, usually the pianist would have, in his band, the pianist would have like charts for each tune, and the bassist would have them. But at a certain point, everyone would just kind of remember everything, and the pianist would have those charts as a backup. What became a problem is if there was a sub for the pianist, and then everyone's like, wait, he doesn't know the or like, wait, we don't have the you know. And if there was a new tune, basically Wallace knew the melody and the chords and everything. Wallace knew it all. The pianist would have the chart, and then I'd kind of have to figure out my part. So I'd either just copy what Wallace was playing, or if there was a record. I mean, a lot of it was like, if it was a recording that he had already done, I would check out the recording and just learn if there was a harmony part, like play Antoine's part. So I'd just learn it from a recording, and then if I needed help with the changes, I'd look at the pianist, his chart, and kind of just figure it out that way. But it was never like really organized. Like, he never like brought in like a bunch of charts and gave everyone one. Like, it was like a very organic, like, all right, let's learn this tune, you know. I mean, sometimes we sat down and a couple times there were tunes that none of us knew, and he would just write the changes and stuff. That happened a couple times. I remember him talking about playing, I still really regret this, that we never played Little Church.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the really cool harmonic progressions of all time. And I think we rehearsed it, but we never like actually played it on a gig. But I remember that when we were rehearsing that, it was one of those things where everyone was like, I don't know, you know. I was like, I don't know this. And he just like sat down and started, you know, writing it out. Yeah. But yeah, and in terms of bringing original tunes like that, the stuff on A Place and Time.
Yeah.
Like I think we didn't. I don't think we rehearsed at all for that. I think we brought some charts. So, some of those tunes, like Elegy, we had been playing regularly, like the traveling and stuff, and then Elegy and a couple of Alice Bop, we already knew those. Yeah. But then for the other original tunes, like Patrice's tune and Buster Williams' tune, Air Dancing, he just brought in everyone brought their own chart and kind of distributed it, and then we basically like sight read it in the studio, and then did a couple takes, and that was it. Which is like, it's really exhilarating, you know. it's really like, but I think it's a really cool way to record because it's old school thing, you know.
Yeah.
Let's just play it. Like, just play it, and
it captures the energy, you know.
Yeah, just play it and record it, and that's it, you know. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. I remember thinking about my tune that
Ardesh.
Yeah, there was. I didn't at that time. I wasn't really good at writing out stuff like certain voice, like chord symbols. So I gave Patrice Russian a chart that had like a couple bad wrong symbols for chords. So I think we had to do a second take because I kind of messed that up, and then I had to talk to her about it and like fix, like I was like, and but she was so cool about, she was like, well, what voicing did you want? You know, I was, I wanted this. And she's like, okay, so here's how you would write that out. And then she just showed me, and then she did it. And then we played it, and it was fine, you know? So that was really cool.
It's a beautiful tune.
Really, thanks. Yeah. I'm really glad we got to play it. And man, Gary Bartz's solo on that tune is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Seems like solo. He could go everywhere. You know, his sound is so fluid in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel him and Patrice Russian, her comping, the way they move harmonically is really, in that solo is really, it's like total like psycho, what do you call it? Like they're mind reading, you know, because they like do these moves harmonically together. It's really cool. I think yeah.
Okay, so but when you're on tour with Wallace and you play every night for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, I'm curious how your view of him was when there was, you know, I'm sure there were nights that were, you know, you thought were more happening than the other nights, because if you play 2 weeks, it's not, you know, there's a certain level in a band, but there are nights which are weird, or, you know, who are not happening like those other nights, which might still be for somebody else in the audience a great night, but you have all these other nights to compare it to, you know. So I'm wondering what your view on Wallace was, you know, how he would handle a night like this, and what your techniques for handling something like this are, you know.
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because like that, to me, that's like the most mysterious thing of all, is like why that happens, and why certain nights are just really, really, really great.
Yeah.
And there's also different kinds of those situations. So there could be a night where the band sounds good, but you sound bad, or I mean me.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone's like killing it, and then like you're struggling with your own whatever issues improvising.
Yeah.
But then there's a night where like everyone kind of isn't connecting, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like a group issue. So to me, yeah, I guess those are different things. But how would Wallace handle that? Well, he would always like give people feedback. He would always know what's wrong, I think. He always knew what the reason was.
Were you surprised sometimes what, you know, he said the reason was?
I just didn't have the experience to know always what it was that was going wrong. So when he would say it, if let's say it was like something like the drummer and the bassist weren't or they were fighting about the time or something like that, or they weren't agreeing about stuff. You know, that was something that I could feel that, but I might not know what the reason is.
Right.
Or the pianist has an interesting role for comping, and like if the pianist's comping is, if it's not busy enough, or if it's like too busy, you know, that can be kind of that can be part of it, or if there's some, I don't know, it's hard to like pin, and I'm not trying to like blame someone, you know.
Sure.
Like definitely not, like, but like definitely people could miscommunicate or not connect. But what Wallace would give us feedback. He always gave me feedback. If he knew when I was like frustrated with my playing and like upset about it or whatever, and he would talk to me about it.
Was it always constructive?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean,
what I'm asking is, could you always take it? You know, could you always take it? You know, and take it in and be thankful for it, or was it also sometimes you know?
Yeah, of course. He never. Okay, I'll just say this: he would never like bully someone. He would never say something hurtful. Never. He would say something like musically, like, "Oh, you're missing this," or like, "You got to work on this," or something. So I would say, yeah, it was always constructive. It was never like, I mean, he never said anything like you suck or like blah blah. Sure. Like, he was just not that kind of person. Like, it was always very like a musical related answer. So in that way, I think he was very generous. He was pretty generous person, you know.
In the course of your stay with Wallace, you've got the opportunity to work with a lot of great musicians. You know, like you said, Gary Bartz and Patrice Rushen, and you know, Lenny White, Buster Williams.
Yeah.
And Ron Carter also, was it something different with Ron?
I think I did one gig that he was on, so I got to play with him once. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm wondering, you know, do you want to share any stories of, you know, encounters within the band of Wallace Roney that were very memorable for you, and that where you learned something specific, or you know, that you have fond memories of?
Well, I remember specifically there was a time, maybe a year or so, when Lenny White and Buster Williams, Lenny White and Buster Williams were in the band.
Yeah,
and that was like a real highlight, I think.
Yeah.
And Victor Gould was playing piano. He's an incredible pianist and really good friend. And that was really fun. You know, like, even when that period in my life, like personally, wasn't good, like I was having my own, like, I was living at home. had moved back home to Chicago, and I was kind of depressed. But when we went on tour with that band, it was really cheered me up a lot, and it gave me a lot of. It was really fun. It was really fun, and I think musically I grew a lot from that. And that was also a little later. So I think when I first joined Wallace's band, I feel I was so inexperienced that I was just like, it was like I was learning so many things so fast, you know?
Yeah.
But that was really fun too, though. You know, like that band with Kush Abdi and Rashawn Carter and Victor Gould. that was a really great band too.
Yeah.
They were all like great bands, like, but I think like it was really, really special for me to be on the road with Wallace and Lenny and Buster and Victor. Like, that was a huge learning experience for me.
Tell me how it feels to play with Buster Williams.
Well, I'd say warm, and supportive. I think he's a very supportive player, and that whatever you play, he's listening really closely, and he always, like, I didn't even realize this until I listened to some of that album, A Place in Time. But like in my solo, when I left a little gap that was a little too long, like he played some like badass, awesome thing that filled it perfectly. I feel very supportive, like, you know, playing with him, and I love his sound. I love his bass sound. Like, such a great tone on that, and so personal. Like when you hear Buster Williams play bass, it's just so obvious that it's Buster Williams. And God, I remember like one of the first albums as a child that I listened to was Boss Tenors, you know, with Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt. You know this album?
I don't know that one. No.
It's a great album. And it's like one of the first albums that I ever had, so it's very like nostalgic. And I think it's from 1960 or 61. And Buster Williams is on it. You know? So like, well, it was so cool to actually meet Buster Williams and play with him. And I got to ask him about that album, you know, like, I asked him, like, what were the you know, like, what was that like? I don't remember exactly what he said, but I was curious about it. And he said that was his first gig, basically. Like, he, I guess he was in Philadelphia, and he said his dad had the gig. Like, they were playing several weeks at this place, and his dad had to sub out the gig with Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt. So Buster was the sub for it, and he was like 18 years old, playing with Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt. And then they were like, "Oh, do you want to go to Chicago with us? Like, we're going next week or whatever." And then, anyway,
wow,
that was really cool to hear him talk about Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt, who is like saxophone royalty, you know, like legends. Like, that was pretty cool. And he's had so many. I mean, he's played with so many like kinds of great musicians. So he's like a real well of experience and knowledge and stuff. So,
I mean, when Wallace said to you guys, Nefertiti and Love Supreme and M1 Dishi, now you get the chance to play with Buster Williams. You know, did you ask him about that band, or did you, you know, did Wallace's comment now make a little bit more sense to you, or, you know, how was that? How did you connect those two things? You know,
it's hard to explain, but it's kind of a surreal thing, you know. But also when you play with someone and then, or if you're on the road with someone and you see them every day, in a way, you're not always going to think about like how world historical they are. They truly are, because they're right in front of you. Like, you're talking to talk about stuff, and so to me, that's the funny thing when you're around people a lot. Like, for instance, being around Wallace, I think a lot, it's like almost like you don't always think about how legendary they are.
Sure.
they become like a person in your life, you know?
They're your friend, you know? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like family. So yeah, sometimes you don't want to say like, something too embarrassing or something like that's like going to be like, I worship you, you know, like, even though you do, you do worship them, but it's like, it's almost like, it's just, you want to be cool, or you want to shut up and not say that much, because I think that's a good strategy for being around older, like I think being around Buster Williams and Lenny White, I tried to be quieter or say less things, and kind of, because then they would talk among each other and talk to Wallace, and they would talk about all this stuff and all these discussions amongst themselves, and me and Victor were in the backseat just listening, like, whoa, like, like, this is interesting, you know. So we didn't even have to really ask about this or that sometimes, because like it would come up and we would just hear all these stories, just like, just being there. So
sure,
that's pretty cool.
Did you leave the band to focus on something else, or what was the reason for you to leave the band? Was it enough after a while, or?
Well, no, it's a combination of things, but basically I had a kind of long period where I was living at home with my parents in Chicago, and I was going on the road with Wallace and making gigs with Wallace. But besides that, I wasn't doing much else musically, and I wasn't. I was unhappy. Like, when I was at home, I was unhappy with my life in general. And like, one of the things that got me out of this, I'll call it like depression. One of the things that got me out of it was taking piano lessons and getting really into piano, and like getting a score, like a piano score, something, and just trying to play it, you know, even if it was too hard for me, just playing like one measure or two measures of it.
Yeah.
And because I think what I needed was like when I wasn't playing Wallace, or I didn't have gigs, because sometimes we didn't have gigs for a month. So what do you do then, you know? And
you're left with your feelings, you know.
You're left, you're just like empty, and like at that time I felt like, oh, I'm so, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but so working on piano was like something I could do on myself. Of course I was working on saxophone too, but piano's more like, it was like a new thing, like I'm a beginner, total newbie, you know. So there's that fun thing of like really discovering something for the first time, and like reading bass clef, and I took a like, I didn't know like bass clef. I didn't know what that, like, what's that, you know? And so like what? So the piano teacher gave me like flashcards, bass clef flashcards, you know. And I remember like, you know, so I'm just saying this to say it was like really a refreshing thing. It was really good for me, and I got really into like, I really got into Maurice Ravel's music. Listening to his music, listening to Claude Debussy music. And what I loved, especially just loved their piano compositions. Of course, they wrote great orchestral, they wrote ballet, you know, Daphne, Ravel wrote a lot of other things, but especially piano writing, I feel like Ravel is like the king of piano, and just like unique approaches, like really unique ideas on the piano that no one had ever even could imagine. And Debussy too, but in a different way. But so like that started this whole phase, and a new phase for me where I was like, I want to study composition, and I want to learn more about harmony, and I want to learn about piano, and like I want to understand these things. I don't want to just be in awe of them, which I already am, but I also want to know how it works, you know? So that got me started thinking about going back to school and going to music school. So I think, that must have been sometime in end of 2015 and 2016. I was doing the piano lessons, and I applied at Berkeley, and I did an audition, and I got a really nice scholarship and everything. And it was like, Berkeley was the school that I could go to. The reason I say Berkeley is because they have jazz musicians at Berkeley, but they also have great composition faculty. And it's in Boston, and it's close to New York. And I needed a place to go where I could work on music and get, learn some other skills that I just didn't have, and in a structured way, like really, and be around other people, people, other kid, like, so the thing was like but then I couldn't like go right away because there was some tours with Wallace coming up. So I like put that off. I was like, all right, I'll do that the next semester.
Yeah.
So like that happened. And then, I think so. Then finally in January of 2017, it worked out where like the gigs with stuff, and it worked where I could start school and still be in Wallace's band.
Yeah.
So I did that. I started in January 17 at Berkeley. And, it was kind of like a new beginning for me in a really positive way. And then I was still making gigs with Wallace. Like I would still go out to, like, we played in California, and then we did other gigs. We had a tour in Europe, and it kind of like worked out somehow. So then finally, that lasted until about the end of the summer 2017. And then there was like a month-long tour coming up in October, and I knew that I couldn't do school and do this tour.
Yeah. How did that feel?
It was horrible. It was a horrible feeling, horrible feeling. So, because I want to do both things. I have my own little independent existence and things but I also want to be in this band. This is like really important. So I told Wallace, like, I could make 2 weeks of the tour, and then we could get a sub. And then he was like, well, I need someone who's committed to this band full time. He didn't want someone who's half in, half, and I think he was hurt, he's like, why are you in school?
Yeah.
In a way, like, you're in my band, like, this is school. And he was right. He was right. Like, that was the greatest school you could have. But I also wanted to be in a school. Like, I wanted to get a bachelor's degree, and I wanted to have like classes. I needed to learn like basic stuff, that I didn't know yet. And I had been in Wallace's band for like 5 years at that point. And also, at that time, I had met Emilio like earlier, like a year before that. And he had come to a couple of gigs with Wallace and sat in. And I really, like, everyone could tell Emilio was like super talented, like badass young guy,
Yeah.
So I figured this is perfect timing. Like, just maybe we'll pivot, and Emilio will do the tour. Then he'll be in the band. I can stay in school and finish my degree. And then, in a way it worked. I think I do feel really bad to this day about like letting Wallace down. I really do feel guilty about it, but in a different way to look at it is it gave Emilio a chance to,
sure, yeah,
get that experience, that I had kind of like, and it was like, all right, this is fair. Like, let's
Yeah.
like, let's just do it, and it ended up working out good, So like, and then later I got to play with Wallace again, like with Emilio. We did a gig.
Yeah.
And like I subbed for Emilio once, so like we were still friends and everything. Like it really worked out well, I think. But I do still feel a little bad about
Yeah.
about that. So yeah, this is like that was a really big dilemma in my mind. So and I know a lot of people wouldn't understand why I did that, but
something you had to do, I guess. But now I'm curious, did that move towards the school and, learning about composition, and we have to get into that, obviously, but did that move help you with the depression thing? Like continuing what the piano lessons gave you, but on a much larger scale, I guess, did that continue to help you?
Yes, I think so.
That's good.
And I think a big part of it for me is like having more agency.
What does that mean?
Agency is like self. It's like having more ability, more competence, more understanding, like not being helpless. One of the things I really struggled with in Wallace's band is that I didn't have any control over whether we had gigs or not. Sometimes we had tons of gigs. Sometimes we had no gigs.
Yeah.
So, but I was powerless. It was frustrating because I didn't have the skills like for myself to lead a band or, to get things together or get other side. I mean, I had a couple other gigs with other people, but I was never really like working a ton, like you're supposed to be. So the way I felt was like I need to take action in my life so that I have more control over my life,
right,
for myself. Yeah. And that's like all it was about. It wasn't about being dissatisfied with something, or it was more like, I was dissatisfied with myself that I didn't have the ability to like control what I was doing in my life. So when I think about what I'm doing today, I think it makes a lot of sense that like me trying to study those areas like composition, taking tonal harmony classes, stuff like that, or a counterpoint class, like that has everything to do with like how I feel now about where I want to have more ability to understand more music, more kinds of music, and want to be able to like write out my charts, or my ideas, like, things that I imagine that are hard to write out, or like I have more skills now to musically like contextualize that and try to write it out and try to play with other people.
What was especially helpful in that regard to make more sense of your ideas and to be able to get them across to other people? What was your process?
When you take a tonal harmony class and they start from like the beginning of everything, you learn the different cadences and stuff. Like I think that it's really important. It's fundamental and it's easy. People think it's easy. A lot of people test out of those courses. They like study the class and then they don't take it because they think it's like too basic for them. But in my opinion, the opposite is true, that those basic stuff that is the most advanced stuff. Like the most fundamental knowledge it's like you have to know, like if you don't really, really get it, you're really like, you you kind of don't understand a lot of stuff.
It's something that you always come back to, and everything else is built on.
I feel that way about music in general right now, is that it's really mysterious to me how it works, because you could know a lot of stuff about music but still not understand something very basic about music. At least that's the way I feel sometimes. Like I feel like sometimes I really just don't understand something, like how it works, and I want to know. So this is part of my what I want to learn, what I want to continue to work on, in different styles too. Like in jazz, listening to John Coltrane, there's a lot of things I love, but I don't understand how it works, So I'm very curious to investigate that. like you investigate, like I want to figure it out. Like, how does it work?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not I'm not being specific about it, but
it's fine. Well, yesterday I was trying to learn Miles mode.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
And yeah, I was wondering how he thought about it. Obviously there's the mirror thing that's happening. Yeah. I was trying to, maybe you can relate to that. I was trying to, because there's certain, packs of notes, that I can divide the melody in certain packs of notes that I think were maybe in Coltrane's head, put the first 3 notes and the next 5 notes make sense in one certain harmonic area, maybe, I was trying to move around those packs, the notes in different orders.
Yeah.
And one funny thing was I adjusted them that they would go upwards and then downwards. And it totally, it's almost like a scale.
Huh.
It was really weird. Because I always, something, I'm just mentioning it because it's something that I wanted to understand lately,
Well, okay, that brings up something interesting, which I think is like the direction of the notes. Like that one, it goes up, da-da, then a down, da-da, up, da-da, then down, da-da, and then 2 down, da-da, da-da.
Right.
So to me, that's like, it's like a really, like those things that are like really, really basic.
Yeah.
Which is like saying 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1. It's like a little surprise at the end where you don't do what you did, or just like long, short. This long, short thing. Like how music is also about long, short, like long notes and short notes. Like it's kind of like you can kind of analyze a lot of music that way.
That's very basic, but it makes total sense. Yeah.
Very basic. It's like a toddler way of understanding music, but it actually helps me a lot for composing. Like think of long notes and short notes and don't have too many of one or the other. Like do something purposeful with them. And I think that like this thing you said about direction of notes applies a lot to that melody and what's cool about it.
Totally. Yeah. Do you think he wrote down the second part of the song? Because he plays it differently, usually plays it differently. And I think the first couple of bars are very specific. And it seems like the other 4 bars are more like an afterthought, Whereas the rhythm is pretty notated maybe, or there's some general information.
Yeah, I have no idea, but this is reminding me of another thing that like there's somewhat of a dispute about that tune, about who actually wrote it, because there's Eric Dolphy song that's the same melody. You know this song? I think it's called is it Red Planet? Let me search it. Hold on.
Maybe I've heard it. Well, he played it together with Eric, so.
Yeah. But like, so, okay. The other thing about that tune is, you know, the 12 tone, it has that 12 tone row aspect to it. And there's another Coltrane tune that has a 12 tone row in it, which is really cool. The Brasilia.
Man,
that's
yeah.
You know,
that's the other song I learned today. That's so funny.
Oh, really?
I thought, yeah, because somehow that's one of my favorite songs of his. But I think a good preparation for this interview would be to learn Brasilia. I don't know why, but it just came to me.
Funny.
So I wanted to ask you about that song, and then I didn't put it together with the 12 tone row because, you know, I wrote it down, but I haven't realized it until now that there's a 12 tone row in there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that tune and Miles Mode are built that way. Which is interesting because, like, he didn't then write like 24 more 12 tone, you know, he didn't get stuck on that. Clearly it wasn't, he was like, all right, I did that. Yeah. Now I can do everything else. Which I think is really cool. But yeah, those are some of my favorite, you know, Coltrane compositions. I mean, those are just great tunes.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even think that they're a 12 tone row because they sound so, it sounds natural, and it sounds stylistic to the style that it is. It doesn't sound like a Schoenberg, you know. It's so cool how he just integrated that idea totally into his music, and, you know, did it and then just moved on. Like, did we talk about the song Expression at all?
Yeah, we talked about it. I mean, we've written each other messages about it because I also learned it, you know, after we talked about it, I think.
Did I send you the chart that I have for it?
Didn't I send you my chart of it? I'm not sure.
Maybe, yeah. I know, because I have a chart.
Okay.
I'd like to see your chart too, but I think there's something in that. There's something like that with the row, but with the bass notes of each chord.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, you said it's something related to Coltrane changes in some kind of way, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, there's so many cool ideas like in that.
I was wondering actually about Brasilia because now you know, the versions I compared were the one from, you know, the Coltrane Quartet plays and from the Village Vanguard with Eric Dolphy and you know, second bassist. And I'm wondering about the rhythm of the melody actually, because it's, you know, at that point where he's recording it on the Quartet Plays record, I think there's some time, you know, in between. I think like 3 or 4 years at least.
Yeah.
So the way he's playing the melody on the Quartet record is very advanced and has a lot of embellishments around the notes, and, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's more, yeah.
Because if you add up all the notes, that's more than 12 notes, I guess, because he's playing all the embellishments around it, you know. But the recording with Eric is very, you know, a little bit more precise and you know, and specific about certain rhythms, whereas the quartet version is very, very loose. I'm wondering, when you take apart a song like this, what's your, because there's something where I'm sometimes not really haven't really made a decision. What's the version that you want to put on paper, you know, for yourself to say, okay, this is the version I'm gonna, you know, because what I really want to find is the the original thing, you know? Because if somebody plays a song for 3 years, as you know, it's changing and it takes on its own life, you know.
Yeah.
But a certain core stays the same. But there's also improvements, you know. And you leave away stuff that is maybe, you know, too much cargo or whatever, you know. It's just too much baggage, and you kind of get to the core of the piece. What's your reference?
I would say for that, the quartet version seems to me like perfect. It's so and I guess it's also the one that I heard first.
Yeah, me too.
So maybe I think of it as the definitive one.
But the thing is, there's a difference in what I think is the tune and what he's playing.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Because there's this one moment where he's playing like bo-de-do, do-de-do, do-de, you know, he's playing those triads.
Yeah.
I don't think that's in the tune. That's kind of something that comes to mind, you know, or he's running up the scale of the D flat minor or something, you know. He's embellishing things.
Yeah, I love that thing he does too with the lone pole.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. Okay, so yeah, I think in that case, I would agree that it's like, if anything, it's less baggage. It's like over time that tune has like shed. It's shed. It's whatever other material, and it's like more compacted by that time, and they just play the tune, and it's definitely more free. I mean, harmonically, it's more. It's way less grounded and more abstract in a really cool way.
I mean, in a basic way, it's just it's just saxophone and drums for the most part until they get to the E flat minor. You know, there's no real chords played by anyone, which is compared to the version from the Vanguard is very different. You know.
Yeah. I love the way it opens with the. Wow. But that album, the quartet plays. That to me is a very unique album.
Why did I gravitate towards this album when I thought of you?
I don't know. I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite ones.
Yeah,
it's definitely
me too.
To me, it's kind of dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way it opens with the on Chim Chim Cheree, like the harmony and everything's so like trains comes on the soprano and it sounds so dark and it sounds like very mysterious to me. Yeah. And it's so even after listening 1,000 times, it's still like mysterious. Like I don't know what it is about that whole album, but it's really got a dark sound to me. Yeah. In it.
It's less tender than the other ones.
I feel that. Yeah, I feel it is. I feel it is less. Yeah. It's kind of raw, maybe I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Even like there's some out like the Sunship album is very. I would say that's very raw, or it's very like a loose feeling to it. But even it sounds a lot brighter to me than the other album we were talking about. Yeah, like it has a brighter outlook or something. Like
yeah. I like that you said looking forward to our discussion, because I think discussion is the stuff that I'm, sometimes it's an interview, and I'm actually looking for a discussion. That's more what I'm looking for than a questionnaire, or
that can be really boring.
And there can also be strengths in that. There can also be things to get from that when a certain person is more like, okay, what's your question?
I mean, I think if you interviewed Buster Williams, he has so much stuff in his head. Like it could just be him interviewed, and it would work, because it's like there's so much there, But for me, I think discussion is better because I don't have all that much. I feel like adolescent. No, I'm like an adolescent, like musically. Like I'm like in the adolescent phase, And that's like a really good place to be, because it's like
that's interesting.
You know what I mean?
Can you explain? Because I can relate to that in some regard, because in a way we have all these teachers throughout our lives, and at some stages there come new ones, and they show you how it's done, and that's one perspective, and a lot of that is still true to you, but you come to a point where you have to realize what is true for you, and what your view on it is, and then we have to emancipate ourselves from what we've learned, in a way, which is hard. Is that what you're talking about?
You have to decide what it is you want to do, or like, to me, I don't know I don't know exactly what, like, I have all these things that I'm inspired by, and I've had great teachers, like you said, like great mentors and stuff, and who share their knowledge, but I don't feel like assertive, like I don't feel like I know the answer, I feel like I have no idea, but I'm looking, like I'm in that phase of like incorporating things and like trying to figure out what am I good at? I mean, really, I think like you want to do the thing that you do best, right? Like your best thing to serve the world is like what you do best.
Right.
And I feel like I don't know what that is exactly, but
how about playing the saxophone?
I mean, I love.
Sorry for being a wise guy, smart ass or whatever. What?
No, but the thing is, like playing the saxophone what would I play on this? Like, what will I play on this? Sure. Like, whose music will I play? Like, am I gonna like? What will I? Like, to me, that's like a huge question. Like, I mean, I want to write the music, but I don't know what. It's like a really like weird problem I'm having. Like, of course, I want to write music that I would play, but I still haven't decided what it's going to sound like, or what the band will be like, or what. Like, I have ideas that I want to try, but I haven't I just don't have enough experience to lead a band at all. Like, I mean, I have led a band a couple times, but I've never had like a working band to just try stuff. And I think you've got to do that before you know what you're doing. Like, I've certainly, by the time I met Wallace, he had already been leading a band for 20 years. Like, he was seasoned. He was like totally a leader, like naturally. But he had also had years of learning, and I'm sure that at some point he had started out leading and he made mistakes or learned from it, So by the time I met him, he was already he knew how to kind of how to manage it. How to manage the people and to manage the music and how it should go. And I feel like I want to be like that someday, but it's that's it's such a, like, you can't fake it, you know, you just gotta, I think.
But don't you think it would, don't you think it would come if you just start?
Yeah.
I mean, start writing things,
I hope so. Like,
start leading a band, start, rehearsing a band or whatever.
Well, that's what I think I want to work on for the future, is like, I think start my own band and just try stuff, try writing music.
Yeah.
Like, but it's I struggle with it, like deciding what it's going to be, like what, like, because I write a lot of stuff that, like, they're like little fragments, and then at the moment I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, like this could be nice. And like a day later, I'll just feel like, oh, this sucks. Like, this is the worst shit. Like, this is shite. It's like, it's never gonna work. Or I write, or it's like I have an idea that, like, works in Logic, or it's it's something that sounds good on a synth or something, but it's not really a band idea, because it, like I don't know, like, I feel like writing music for a band that's really, you're gonna have a really good band of good musicians, you got to give them space to do add their musical touch, So what I'm struggling is to write music that has enough information,
right,
or enough ideas, but isn't just like so dense that there's just like, it's like annoying to play. So sorry, now I'm like just confiding in you my anxieties, fine. But like, do you what's your experience as a band leader? Do you struggle with that, what I'm talking about?
Well, I think I've been leading a band for a long time already, and I just went into it very naively. Even before I was studying, I had a trio, and I think it's an art form. I think it's a deep skill to be a band leader, and I think with all the experiences we have as a side person, good and bad, we form the way we want to treat the musicians that we're hiring. Like, usually for most of the decisions I have to make for my band or my music, I usually go by thinking about how would I want it? How would I want it? And that's basically what you're thinking about. But how would I want to be treated? What kind of fee do I want, or what kind of food do I want before a gig, or what kind of, that's very basic, obviously, but still, all these thoughts or decisions, they make up what you're, what it's going to be that will be the thing how you lead a band. What kind of, as you said, how would I want the music to be given to me? Would I give out sheet music, or would I teach the songs? And then also what is practical, because a lot of the stuff I write is pretty long, so it's not really practical maybe to do it without sheet music, although I would want to do it more, and with some tunes we've done it without sheet music, and the experience was so much, was a lot different. So you have to make adjustments of what is practical and what is what is doable with the people you're hiring. If you're hiring people who are busy, which they should be, because you want to hire good people, usually they're exactly. Busy. So you have
That's the number one band leader problem.
Yeah, right. But it could also be other kinds of decisions, like maybe I hire younger guys because they're not busy yet, but I can see the potential in them, or they are killing already, but nobody knows them, and I can form form it a little bit more maybe into your view, and as opposed to with people who are already more established and also used to be called for doing what they do best or whatever. That's a decision you maybe want to make. And the same thing with writing also. Is this chord something that I would like to play over? Is this a melody that I want to play 10, 20, 30 times, for 3 years or whatever?
Yeah.
Do I really like it? And because I've written a lot of things, and in some of them there are things that I don't like. And looking back, I would now maybe take them out and see how the composition then would sound. But somehow it took, it was important for me to have that at that point, I thought. But looking back now, no, I don't want to have things in my music that I don't like,
Yeah.
But having things you like isn't the same thing as being comfortable with things, because there's a lot of things in my music sometimes that I'm not comfortable with, but I like the challenge of it or something like that, So that's another thought maybe, I think. So writing for people and then writing for how they sound, but also maybe writing for them how you would like them to sound, or how writing stuff that could be a challenge for somebody.
Yeah.
So writing against your expectations and their expectations as well. But then again, also just writing, today I wrote 2 tunes after I transcribed Miles' Mode yesterday. And then I thought, okay, I've done the mirror technique in my compositions before, but only in a short moment, maybe, just to get from one place to another. Let me write out, because I don't have an instrument. I thought, okay, I'm going to write out 2 tunes, just, having a melody and then putting a mirror in the middle where I decide I want the middle to be. Not it doesn't have to be 4 bars, it could be in the middle of a bar or whatever. And then I just put the mirror and then I put chords to it. And then I sent the sheet music to my students and was like, please send me a recording. I would like to hear it. It was fun.
That's cool.
But still, I think it's 2 cool tunes, but it's not like, in the moment where I write it, it's not like I'm already saying, this is the greatest song I'm writing. Yeah, I will ever write, No, it's a process, like practicing. Yeah. You just have to do it and do it and do it and not think about the end result too much. More like, and then when it's finished, then you can think about it and say, okay, bar number 3 sucks, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, just reminding me of a problem I'm having right now with something, which is like, okay, Miles' Mode is like one of the short, very short songs, right?
Yeah.
Like super short.
Yes.
And then I wrote something the other day but it's short, but it doesn't feel finished.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is my issue, is like, I'm like, oh, should I write more? Like, should there be, and it's like, it's really hard for me to just like kind of leave something and just move on. Like,
yeah.
But at the same time, when I look at the music that I like, almost all of this stuff is short. I mean, like, it's all like, songs like Nefertiti is like what, like 16 bars?
Yeah.
How
short is yours?
A lot of
your song.
I don't know. I actually haven't written it out yet. I've just been playing it. This is also a problem with.
That's maybe something. Maybe you should write it down, and then you see it, and then you get some visual aspect. Like, maybe how about I transpose this bar there, or
Yeah, I've had different results too with like. Sometimes I play things on a loop.
Yeah.
And I just keep playing it, and that. Like, I feel like that song, Ardesh.
Yeah.
is like that. It's something I would just play on piano.
Yeah.
And then even like for a year, I didn't write it down, like, because I didn't have a reason to until we had that recording. So, but some other things that I started writing down, which I know people say like, oh, you should just write first and then play it later. Or, I mean, everyone has their own idea, but like,
yeah, there's no one
like
way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Very personal.
But like the issue I have is like when I start writing, I'll write stuff that fits in the bar. I'll write stuff in, let's say it's 4/4. I'll write 4/4 stuff. If I just play something and play it on a loop and then just like record it, it's usually like a little freer. And then the challenge is how to write out the weird rhythm that I just imagined. Like that was a big problem with this etude book thing.
Yeah.
Because some of the especially the first one, I never wrote out. I just played it, and then when I had to write it out, I realized, oh God, there's like 5/8. There's some like weird stuff in here, but it doesn't. So that's anyway. Sorry, I'm
but those
going on.
etudes,
But I feel these conflicts, you know.
Sure, but that's something that everybody feels, I think. And I think maybe you got away with how should I say this? But you've just published a great book of etudes, which is full of great songs in a way. You know, those are great compositions. You've called them etudes and maybe got away with how can I put this into words? You know, you're basically telling me your struggle with composition and putting stuff on paper and, you know, arriving at a finished product. But on the other hand, you just released a book of how many? 20 etudes or whatever? 25?
It's 12. It's 12. Yeah. Not so many.
Well, there's enough material in them for 25 or 50. No, but still, you know, how about that? I mean, it's there. It's obvious. You've just released 12 compositions.
Yeah, but that's different because that's like a one line. It's like, well, sorry, I'm not trying to argue with you about.
No, it's fine.
But like, I feel like when something's so limited, that does make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just for one instrument, and then also for those that had the theme, you know, so each one would have a different modulation scheme. So that helped me a lot to write because then each one had its own goal. You know, I think that made it a lot easier to do that project because it wasn't just like open, like write. It wasn't like an assignment.
Yeah, write a cool tune.
Or it's solo. Write a solo. Yeah, write a cool tune or write a solo saxophone thing. It was really limited. So maybe,
But that's, I mean, also there, it's there. I mean, the answer is there already, right? I mean, why don't you make a scheme or a problem or a scenario, make it up before you write something. You know, somebody once gave me the advice to write a song with a musical problem that I have as a topic. Like write a song with just half diminished chords. And I still think about it. And when I try to incorporate that sound more into my music, now it's full of half diminished sounds, my music, you know. Write a song in 9/8 or write a song with counterpoint. That can be a problem, you know, that can be an objective. And it's all about, I think, it's all about taking you out of your comfort zone, right into the uncomfort zone, you know. And another cool thing was, you know, Jorge Rossi, the drummer, you know, he told me he was meeting this girl and he had to remember her phone number. So I wrote down her phone number, but I think he was coming out of a bad relationship with another person. So he couldn't write down, a number, an actual number. So he wrote down pitches. So if you write down a phone number in pitches, the 0 becomes a pause, and the 1 becomes the first pitch of the scale you're imagining. It could be different scales, Check out how your phone number sounds. It's really cool. They really sound cool. And then all these ideas, like being a kid, playing Legos with those ideas, okay, now I'm going to start this phone number in C major, but I'm going to end up in E major. And, then I'm going to go to A flat minor and then A minor, do stuff like that with the composition and just have fun. And then if you don't care so much about the end result, it's more about the process. And I also always have to think about Hermeto Pascual, who wrote Little Church. He did this thing, he did a calendar of songs. Just write one song that works each day. So that's, after 1 year, that's a lot of songs where, of course, he's an incredible composer, but not every song will be a masterpiece. It will be a piece of, the process. But maybe every third, every 10th, maybe, how about every 50, 50th song will be something to play with the band. And that became when I thought about that became an objective more to write something that works, And the same guy who, so now I'm on a rant here.
This is great. Keep going.
That same guy who suggested doing a song with only half diminished. He also said, how about you try to write a really bad song? Have you tried to write a really bad song yet? And I was like, no, I haven't. I always want to write a very good song, He said, try to write a very bad song. I tried, wrote it out, and then played it for my teacher at that time, the different guy. And he was like, yeah, I know why he suggested that. It's a pretty good song. And I was like, yeah,
wait,
is
why?
it? And he said, yeah, because you became invested in it. You became, you were attached to making it something that, you had a goal or whatever. And you can't really on purpose write a bad song because you get invested in it, and thereby it becomes personal. It becomes your thing. You still want to be good at writing a bad song,
That's true. That's really funny. I really like that idea though you were saying about, like problem solving.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the Coltrane catalog of his compositions to me is very like, you could see that he was like solving problems and different problems, different periods, but
you can see what he's working on. Yeah,
it's so clear.
Although I couldn't see the 12-tone thing in Miles mode and in Brasilia. Sometimes it's also hidden, and that's also nice to have it so mysterious that the technique is hidden with it,
Well, it sounds so natural.
Yeah.
Those tunes.
What's the latest song of his that you've learned?
I think it was Black Pearls.
That's an early one, right?
Yeah. Which I always listened to, and I always loved it. But I had actually never played it, and I never played the head. I was always like so into the solo. So I think that was about a month ago because I was listening to that album again. It was in high school. It was one of my favorite albums. And I was like, why don't I just, so I played along with the head a couple times and like learned it. It's got a really nice opening. It's got these great like hits and stuff. It's a pretty cool tune. That's the last one that I learned actually.
Cool. I have some time on my hands right now, so I might learn it tomorrow then. Thanks for hipping me to it. I might have listened to that record, but those early ones, those prestige ones, I have most of them, I think. But I think I tend to listen more to the later stuff, Atlantic and,
Yeah.
Impulse.
I mean,
of course.
it's all so great, The prestige stuff. There's so much of it that it's kind of hard. Like, you kind of gotta just like. I think in high school I had the box set. It's like this big, thick red box.
Yeah.
Fearless Leader, or maybe it was just prestige box. There's a
Isn't
Fearless
it called
Leader.
Heavyweight Champion?
That's the Atlantic one. That's the Atlantic box.
Okay.
I think so. I had that too, and it had like alternate takes of Giant Steps and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, just like going through those box set of prestige. I mean, it's just like so many tunes, so many standards, a lot of funny standards like "Do I Love You Because You're Beautiful," which is like one of the corniest tunes ever. I mean, on the face of it, the way they play it, it sounds great. Yeah. You would never know that it's from the musical Cinderella. I think it's from Cinderella. But I remember I once was curious about it and looked it up, and the lyrics are literally, "Do I love you because you're beautiful?" Or "Are you beautiful because I love you?"
Wow. Okay.
And it's like, God, this is terrible. But they play that song. It sounds great. Red Garland, like, he makes everything sound hip. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
I want you to take me through your obsession with Coltrane a little bit more, into your process and into your way to understand. There's this, I think Ron Carter said about Wallace, that Wallace was the one who understood Miles's language the most. And that's something similar I could say about you, about Coltrane, that, there's so many people who have incorporated things from him, but I don't know a lot of people that, understood him so on such a deep level that you did. So I'm curious about your process, and you can take it wherever you want, just, I want to know how you, what you did.
Well, first of all, that's a very sweet thing to say. Thank you. I like what you said earlier, that it's like love. It's like fall. Like, I never heard anyone say it like that, but I think that's true. You fall in love with something, and you want to know every part of it.
Yeah.
And you're really never going to know every part of it also. It's always going to be mysterious. And but that's why you just keep obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Never ends. So that's definitely how I feel about his Coltrane's music. I think I don't know. I think I listened to a lot of Coltrane albums. I think one of my first favorite ones was My Favorite Things. It's a really magical feeling. I was probably 10. Yeah, I was 10 or 11 years old when I first was listening to that, and I didn't know anything about music theory, and I barely knew anything about saxophone. So I didn't really understand what I was hearing. And it was like the magical experience, the magical sound of his soprano sound, and the whole band, just the flow of it, or there's some, especially about that song, My Favorite Things. It's just like, feels like a nature, it's almost like pastoral, or maybe not pastoral, but like a fantasy. It's like a fantasy of some natural landscape in the future on another planet or something. And it's so peaceful and also filled with interesting things to look at. And, but like, wow, I really miss listening to Coltrane and not knowing music theory, because I think I heard it so emotionally back then.
Yeah.
And then the more you like try to figure stuff out, the more you discover it. It's like your mind, the way you hear music changes. And then you're so focused on, like, you can't not hear the components, and like your brain's trying to analyze it,
Totally. Yeah.
So that's something that is really eerie for me, is like, I remember listening to Crescent a lot as like a preteen, like, or maybe 13, 14 years old, listening to Crescent, and just, it's like blowing my mind, But then, like 10 years, like, I don't know, like 10 years later, transcribing the Crescent solo, and then I wanted to learn like every note of it, like everything, and I try to like play along with it, play it and get, try to like really figure out how it works. And then like I could feel in my brain something like really weird happening, where I felt like I was almost like in this, like I could hear the studio or something. I could hear the space it was recorded in, and like I was like thinking so much about the articulations used and the intonation, which I never thought about when I was 13. I was just always out of tune, and if other people were in tune, I didn't notice. I mean, it sounded great, but I didn't know that their intonation played a part in it. But I think like that's, as I get more into his music, I'm noticing like he uses intonation very, very purposely and like expertly, like tactically in tune, and then bends things very purposely to create illusions. People talk about sheets of sound and how fast he played, but a lot of times it's not that fast. It's like he's bending the pitch down a little bit with his throat. And then, so if you slow it down, you'll notice like, wow, it's like really flat, or it's kind of flat when he's like, and so even it is fast, but it's not unbelievably fast. Like you can
hear the pitches.
You can hear all the pitches, but at that speed, when the intonation's down, your ear doesn't recognize every note. So that's why you hear it as a wash of sound. Versus like Michael Brecker plays really fast notes. They're all in tune. They're like pixelated. Like you can, everything's perfect. And so like when you hear it, I mean, it's very impressive, and it's so virtuosic, of course, like that. Everyone loves his Michael Brecker's playing, but it's not the same effect of like a wash, an illusion of sound that I hear from Coltrane that is so cool. It's like it's like a swirl, like a whirlpool, like like, and I just love that. But yeah, it's a weird feeling, like listening to those recordings back after really like trying to figure out what's going on, because I hear them so differently, and I'm really excited for like 10 years from now, if I listen to them again, like what it will sound like, because I've just noticed like over the course of time how much my own, like, just it's so hard to explain in words like what music sounds like and how you feel music to other people. So sorry if I'm going on about this, but it is really such a strange and cool feeling. But yeah, one of the things I for investigating that and learning about Coltrane is I think people draw the periods in time, like his early period, middle period, late period, And yeah, that all makes sense, like academically, but like actually, there's all one to me, and it's all integrated.
Yeah.
Like if he played things at the end of his, career, end of his life, that were actually really a lot related to things he played way back when.
Yeah.
And even like in the speech, the speech-like way of playing and speaking through an instrument in a way that I think no other saxophonist does that way that he does. And even on a technical level, like harmonic tendencies, like ways of just the note choices are very similar. Like from Giant Steps to Interstellar Space, he's still playing a lot of the same.
Yep. Still working it out.
He's still working on those changes.
Yep.
And people think it's like so free and it's so like it's so wild, blah blah blah. But it's also so logical, so structured, so detailed. It's like it's all purposeful. It's not just like
chance.
It's not just
something. Yeah.
It's not. It's like it makes a lot of sense. Like so, but yeah. What I think is so powerful is that intellectually it's probably the most, so it's all there. Intellectually, it is as powerful and as deep as you could get. And spiritually or emotionally,
right.
Also, there's no real compromise between those two domains. And maybe it's an artificial dichotomy that people create this separation in the first place. Because like in school, you learn technique, you can teach that harmony. You can't teach someone to have feelings or care about other people. So maybe there is a, dichotomy, but I think what I love about what I feel is truthful about his music is that he unites them. And it's like there is no difference. There's no difference between intellect and spirit or being smart and caring about other people. It's like, it's all like you work on one and it enhances the other.
Right.
In a really powerful way. And that, like, to me conceptually, that's why I feel his music so strongly, because it just never gives up in that aspiration to do both things.
That makes sense.
And, sorry, I'm going on a little bit.
Please go on. Please go on.
I mean, there's people said stuff like, this is a different musician, like Maurice Ravel, we talked a little bit earlier, but like people called him like, oh, he's like a technical composer, or he writes like, they called him the watchmaker, the Swiss watchmaker. Like he's like all about these puzzles and things, but I think that's really wrong too.
Yeah.
I feel like his music, I emotionally feel it so strongly.
Yeah.
And I feel like the aspect of technique and perfection, it's all to that aim, to the goal of expressing something deeply personal and emotional. Yeah. And I feel like that like in terms of musicians that we fall in love with, or that I've fallen in love with, like it has to have that, like, I think that's why I fall in love with Coltrane's music, but also Maurice Ravel's music.
Yeah,
it's like a really focused and detailed effort, but it's also so personal, and it's like, I just think there's not many people like that, like who have lived, or it's really hard. Have to be a very special person,
right,
to make music like that. So that's why I just want to keep studying it, keep learning, like keep that's why I don't want to like move on to like other other things, you know. Of course I do want to study other people, but I don't want to just like move on in the sense of like, oh, that's done. Like, no, like
I
that's
figured
like,
it out now.
I just, no, like
Yeah.
no one could figure that out really.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of want to kind of staying committed to like studying that music, because I don't think it just would never stop being interesting, and you could always learn something from it.
Were there times where you had to move away from him? Where you said like, I'm not going to listen to him for at least a month or whatever, you know?
Not really. Honestly, I took breaks where I was just like really interested in something else.
Yeah.
For a while, but I was still coming back to Coltrane and listening to his albums. I was never like didn't listen to Coltrane for a month. I don't think that's ever happened in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, since I started, but like, yeah, I mean, also even within Coltrane, there's so many, you know, you could like, if you let's say you get sick of like listening to one period of Coltrane, you could go to some other part of it and it'd be for kind of really different and fresh. So I just think it's just endless. And I just think it's pretty inspiring story, like his life and it's just like a human, like a human feat of strength and imagination, you know. Like I've watched a bunch of all the documentaries about Coltrane and stuff. The one that came out a couple years ago, the Chasing the Train.
Yeah.
That one's really good. Like, I mean, I think I even like cried during it because it was so.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I liked it too. Although I have to say, I kind of neglects the later period of his life and music, I feel. You know, it's like basically, he's amazing and he became this thing and, you know, Love Supreme and Ascension, and then he did some other stuff which was kind of crazy, and you know, that I got that kind of vibe from it, you know, a little bit, which is what you hear from a lot of people, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree. I think he's been wronged in a lot of ways by historians or musicologists, whoever writes books about Coltrane, they gave him a wrong interpretation, in my opinion.
Man,
and I
just started reading this book by Ben Radcliffe about him, Story of a Sound.
Sound. Yeah.
Have you read it?
I read that. I like that one.
You did? I stopped a couple of days ago because I felt like I'm not going to finish this.
Why?
Because he does things that some critics do, which is have an opinion, you know, have an opinion about what's good and what's bad. And that's something I don't want to read in a biography somehow. You know, I kind of want to put you know, they can put things into context. Yes. Yeah. But what I don't like, you know, what he said about the avant-garde, that album with Don Cherry and, you know, Ornette Coleman, he said, and then he made an unspectacular album with Don Cherry, you know, with Ornette Coleman's rhythm section. And then he played too much with Monk. And you can see the relation between, with this, one recording of Off minor, and then he plays it a couple of months later, and then he's more at ease and doesn't play as much and blah, blah, blah. You know, playing a lot was equated with bad, basically bad. And, stuff like that. So, and then I felt like, yeah, I shouldn't read this. I don't want to read this.
Yeah, I read that book when I was in high school, and I remember liking it because it had a lot of biographical detail in it.
Yeah,
like about
those
his
parts I
personal
like
life.
too. Yeah,
And that's what I really liked about it. Like it touched on some things that weren't. I don't remember how opinionated he was about that stuff, but the way I see stuff like that is, obviously he's wrong, but he's wrong. But a lot of those biographies are, they're just good things. Well, I they're good things to
sure.
just the background, get background,
Yeah,
get background information, and like a sense of the timeline of like how things happened. But I agree, like those opinions are really wrong, and a lot of the opinions that people have made about Coltrane are just, yeah, they're wrong. And I think a lot of the people that write those biographies, they're not really musicians, or they're not, so.
I don't think that they don't have to be musicians to write a good book. I don't think that's the case, and I'm sure you agree. But it has to be. With some critics, they are frustrated musicians and have certain knowledge about the music, which they will let you know in every sentence, in every second sentence, which gets on my nerves. So I'm very, very receptive for any kind of material that goes into that direction, where somebody's like, here's something I know. And I know when Coltrane is playing good and when he's not playing good, and he was like, also like, yeah, there we have a fully formed sound of Coltrane. And there the sound isn't there yet and whatever, and I never feel like, obviously he goes through an evolution, but we all have our sound built into ourselves. We can't help but, obviously we can work on our sound, but we cannot change the basic thing that is the fundament of our sound, which obviously comes through our personality, but also physicality of the body. Obviously, if I put down a key, I can't do anything about how I can, manipulate the sound and the touch and the but I can change the way that my body is, somehow.
Yeah.
Well, I have the Coltrane reference, that big book of all of his.
Yeah.
You know that one, right?
Yeah, the big red.
Yeah.
It's like this big, and it's like got every day of his life.
Yeah.
It's a little bit absurd.
It's overwhelming.
I think, yeah. It's like devotion. That guy is devoted to Coltrane.
Yeah.
The guy who did that book is like, he's so devoted.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, sorry I interrupted you. What were you going to say about it?
Yeah, I didn't read it fully, but I like to look into it, and then follow kind of what he was up to, and then when another sideman comes in or somebody else subs or whatever, That's nice. I like stuff like that. And I think there's another one by Lewis Porter. I've ordered that one, so I'm waiting for that to arrive.
I think that might be the best one, the best book.
Yeah,
that's like Coltrane biography. I think that's the best one. I had another one that was called Chasing the Train. And God, I actually don't remember who wrote it. Oh, by J.C. Thomas. That's
Right.
another.
Okay.
That's another good book to check out.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, I forget, maybe it's that one, talks about his personal life in a really candid way, which was a little bit scandalous, I thought.
Like how?
And I don't know, it had like a letter from his mistress or something, which to me seemed a little dubious.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's not really fair to put in a biography.
Yeah.
First of all, is that even real?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that, and also, you know, it's kind of like, to me, it's like, whatever. I thought it was a little too personal, or I don't know. Maybe it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't, if, you know, it's hard to explain, but it is interesting too. Like, in a, yeah, it's interesting trying to understand someone who's been dead for like so long,
Right.
and then, but whose music is still really alive. I mean, I think his music is really alive. Like, a lot of people love his music and learn it and study it. Like,
Yeah.
But in terms of the human being part of like who was this person, you know, that's like, I think it's kind of impossible. It's hard.
Were there people who helped you make more sense of Coltrane's music or his way of playing? That who told you things that you weren't hip to yourself yet, or maybe were you that you weren't aware of? Who were people who were helpful in studying that music?
I definitely would say Dave Liebman.
Yeah.
Dave Liebman. I think he has a great knowledge, incredible knowledge of John Coltrane and all the different ideas in it. I think he's like a really good. He's someone who can like express ideas really well in speech and writing too. He writes really well. And he was actually there. You know, he saw
him at Vanguard.
Yeah, like he was in the room listening to the real life John Coltrane. So I feel like that's an understanding that you and me will never really get. Like we can't, like, but that's like, I would always defer
until we build our time machine.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I would always defer to someone who was there in the room, because they got to really like to feel that for real. So that's, and I remember talking to him about how Ornette Coleman, or he was saying how Ornette Coleman influenced Train. In a way that, and specifically he said, I think I recall him saying that the Chasing the Train solo, you know, live at the Vanguard, that's like fits into that influence of Ornette. And after he said that, and I listened to it, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because of the way how melodic it is, and very like, I mean,
it has a simplicity also.
Yeah, the like they're playing a blues, but
he's playing triads the whole thing.
Triads, and also like G major scale, a lot, like without the flat 7. You know, with like the leading tone.
G major. Are you talking in B flat?
Sorry,
right?
I'm talking in tenor key. So
yeah, sure.
It's F major. Sorry.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you just some of the phrases, da ba da ba da ba ba da. You know, it's like it's all notes in the F major scale, which you would say is, oh, that's not the blues. It's not like bluesy or whatever, in a superficial way, people would say that's blues is like these, altered notes of the scale or whatever. But there's something anyway, sorry, it doesn't matter, but the simplicity of using that scale and something about it, it does really remind me of Ornette Coleman.
I had to think of Ornette with Brasilia today also.
Oh, huh.
In terms of, thinking about, what's it called? Lonely Woman.
Yeah.
That rubato kind of feel.
That makes sense.
Anyways, you were talking about Dave Liebman and people who were helpful in helping you to understand Coltrane.
Yeah, I think Dave Liebman has a lot of insight. Who else? Well, my first teacher, Dimitri LeMay, my first sax teacher, he introduced me really to Coltrane and kind of like fed me different albums, so he just was really great, for introducing me to all kind of stuff, and not just like the easy stuff, like I remember us talking about really late, Ascension and Interstellar Space. Even like when I was like 11 or 12, like being aware of those albums and like what they sounded like. And I think sorry, this is like an offshoot from your question, but I think one of the things that I feel really lucky is like I feel like people in my life, a lot of my teachers, they never like held back stuff from me. And we're never like, we'll start with, Stella by Starlight and this and that. And then later you can hear this, or later we can think about this, or Interstellar Space or whatever,
Yeah.
But like, of course, you gotta learn like basic tunes and like learn your major scales. Of course, like my Dimitri taught me all the major scales and stuff, and we worked on that. But then also he showed me like those albums that are really like really advanced stuff, even when I wasn't able to just like understand it. Just being exposed to it, I think, was like really important for me.
Yeah.
He also gave me a CD of Vlado Perlmutter playing Ravel piano, like most of the Ravel piano works, when I was 12 or 13. So like I feel like a lot of my tastes were kind of shaped by, in a great way, like influenced by what he showed me. And so I think if I ever taught someone who was that young, like, I think it'd be really cool to like you should show them everything. Don't like try to decide for them what they're ready for or not,
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, back to your question. Other people who, well, Wallace.
Right.
Wallace too. We talked a lot about. I remember he talking a lot about Live at Birdland, like the "I Want to Talk About You" solo and cadenza, and pointing out to me certain things about this solo and how it works, and kind of like telling me, check this out, keep on listening, like, you should learn this, basically. You should transcribe, you should check this out. And I remember him talking about phrasing. I talked to him about phrasing, and he had some really good ideas about that. Like where often he does this thing where before he plays a phrase, he anticipates it with a long note, and it'll be like ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
And this is very rudimentary.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but like often at the end of a chorus, to set up the next chorus, he'll do that, and it's like the whole band knows exactly what to do, and it's like unites, or maybe it's at the end of a certain phrase, but like that really purposeful way of, I remember talking to Wallace about that. He said it's hard to recall exactly what he said about it, but it's like a speech-like way, and even like a rhetorical way of doing music, like repeating something at the beginning as a way to mark things, or the ending too. Sometimes like the ending of the phrase is the same.
I wanted to ask you about the endings.
Yeah, the ending of the phrase, sometimes it's like da ba and then ba da.
Absolutely, man.
So like it's and
he will end
the
phrase with something like a very earthy and very down to earth and rootsy kind of just simple thing. That's something that was super helpful for me as well to understand in those past years. Like playing the most out of, most out stuff, but ending it with a very, very down to earth thing.
Yeah, there's certain solos where he I think like in like I think this is like a rhetorical thing that people sometimes do in church where they repeat the first line and then the last line has an ending to it and it's like amen. Then you say this other stuff and then you say amen again.
Absolutely.
Or maybe you say like thank you Jesus, or I don't know what you say. I'm not a Christian. But they have it in other religions too. I mean, it's like a thing where you say the different text, then you repeat the last line.
It's an affirmation, I think it's called, right?
Yeah. Something. Yeah, I don't know I'm sorry because I'm so ignorant about which religion does this, but it's a thing that people that it's a very old way of people, speaking, and I think that's somewhere in there, and it's really powerful. Yeah.
Let's go back to the composing topic. I really like your little songbird thing with the thing from, I think is it Miroirs by Ravel?
Yeah.
I mean, with Ravel, it's usually played very fast, that little figure. But you take it and make that a centerpiece of your composition, and it's so cool. I mean, I really like that piece. And is that something that you were talking about in terms of, you can make it sound great on a synth, but you don't know how to maybe do it with a band in terms of rhythm also, because I mean, there's one moment, and I think it gets repeated or comes back in a different moment, where there's a certain groove that's been played by the drum computer or whatever you have programmed there. But it seems like you slow down everything in one moment. You know what I mean? Everything seems to be very, inside the groove,
Yeah.
But then the musical information gets like you zoom out and you zoom in, and everything becomes super slow motion, although the groove is happening there. I was wondering what you were thinking in that moment.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is like after the main melody part is like over, and there's like a transition to like the second part. Is that the part you're talking about?
I think so. It's something where my mind at least can follow the rhythm precisely as in before,
Yeah. That's okay. So that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, of like ideas that I like to write, and on electronic, for this synth, thing with the programmed drums, but that I worry would be really hard in real life, because those rhythms, when it feels like it's like zooming out, like you said, I think what you're talking about is these dotted rhythms, where dotted eighth notes, which is like in, I don't know. I guess I haven't really played that much of like modern jazz. I mean, maybe people use dotted eighth note a lot, but I haven't seen it that much. Like, to me, it's a hard rhythm to, if the it's still part of that. Still part of 4/4 or 3/4 in that case. It fits on the grid, but it's like if you divide it by let's say eighth note. Yeah, so eighth. Sorry, I'm really struggling with this. Help me figure this out. So a dotted eighth note is like a quarter note, but you took 3/4 of the quarter note, right?
I think that makes sense. Yeah, it's 3/16 notes.
3/16 notes, right? So
we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. So then if you have a bunch of them in a row, like it's a little bit, it is like slowing tempo, because you're just playing the eighth notes of before, but they're like 1/4 longer, right?
Yeah.
Like your 1/2 becomes a 3/4. But the way that ear hears it is like, you hear it as the same rhythm, just elongated. Or this is how I think of it. But it gets a little confusing, because then you got 3/16, and then you add another one, and then you got 6, and then 9, and it's like, it'd be easy to shave off tempo somewhere. It'd be easy to get confused, and it just seems a little cumbersome, honestly, to try to do that with even the But thanks for bringing up that tune. That is something I want to write out and play.
Yeah, you should. It's a great song.
That's like something that I would imagine that I can play it, but then when I have to write it down, I just dread it, because it's always like harder to write out than it always, like I would write music that I would always want to play something that feels natural.
Sure.
And it should.
But sometimes we have to get to the unnatural part to make that part of our language, and to make that part of our sound. That's, if we only play what's natural, we're going to stay in one place. And if we, at some point we have to make the thing that feels unnatural, make that as best as we can feel natural to us. So we extend the vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's what everybody
right now.
Yeah. I think that's what everybody of our heroes, that's what they did, They've looked at something that has been done before, but then they're like, yeah, I know that now, or I know a lot of it about it now. Now I'm going to try to use this on something else. A thing that was helpful for me, one of my teachers said, like, if you write something down, may it be a composition or a transcription or whatever. Be as precise as possible and as loose as necessary.
Huh.
So it's a matter of judgment also, you know, how precise do you have to be really? But if you can come close to what it is, you know, go for it. But if there's still some room for argument or room for, you know, X, whatever, you know, let it be. Don't be too. It's basically having it balanced, you know. How much of that great arrangement that you've done of that song, of your song, how much of it doesn't really have to be on paper? That's the question, you know, I guess. Yeah. And if you would play that for a drummer, maybe he would, you know, if you just play it for him, the recording.
Yeah.
Maybe take out the drum part.
Yeah.
Because then he can find his own thing, and it might be less complicated in a way. You know, it might be more accessible for him to find something.
Yeah.
But I really like that, you know, taking one little idea, one little motive, and making that the base of your compositional search, because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're searching something.
Yeah. I think that one pattern from help me with the pronunciation. It's sad birds in French. We sois triste. It's so
yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. But it's like, isn't it from Miroir? That's the song cycle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But that movement is called. It's so hard to say.
L'oiseau triste.
Yeah.
L'oiseau.
Which is sad birds.
Yeah.
In English, or sad bird, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But that one motive, I used to practice it a lot because it's one of those things where every interval in it is different. It goes up a fifth, up a major third, down a second, and then down a fourth. So every interval.
Say again. Please say again.
Yeah. It goes up a fifth. So like, just in any key, it's like D to A, then C sharp, so up a major third, then down a major second to B, and then down a perfect fourth to F sharp.
Right. Yeah.
Da, dee, da, da.
That's also a great voicing if you put those notes together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's very harmonic.
So yeah, totally. And I think what works, why I want to hear it again and again in that piece by Ravel is because every interval in it is different, is distinct. At least for that first part. Then it goes da da da. But the first part, every part of it is, every movement is different than the one that happened before. So in that way, I think is like, not to be like overly analytical, but I think it is part of what. It's not like a pattern. It's really anyway. Yeah. Sorry, it's hard to explain my idea, why I like this idea so much. But so I used to just practice the pattern, just transposing it, you know. Da 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 da, and then do it, you know, diatonically in a scale, you know, major scale. Try it. And it's so beautiful. Like it's just so. So I always like wanted to write a tune with that melody in it, because like as a tribute, you know, or
sure.
Because I love that melody. So.
There you go, love.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the end of everything. I mean, that's, I think,
or the start.
That's like or it's the reason we're doing things. Like if I think of like a good reason to do something, that's a good reason.
Yeah.
But thanks for putting it that way. That's a really nice way of saying it.